Well, tomorrow marks the 1 year since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, eliminating the constitutional right to an abortion. And who could forget that historic day?
The conservative majority by a 6-3 vote overturning Roe v. Wade, the right to choose abortion that had stood for half a century in this country, a nearly 50-year precedent. Tonight, these images coming in from across the country, the demonstrations and protests, and outside the Supreme Court, crowds growing all day, one side declaring victory, the other side in disbelief that this is no longer a decision protected across this country.
Well, since then, the landscape of abortion services and women's health care has changed dramatically. Now, at least 15 states have stopped nearly all abortion procedures, compared to just 2 states before the Dobbs decision. And a new Gallup poll shows that support for abortion rights is more popular than ever now. 69% of people say they believe abortion should generally be legal in the first 3 months of pregnancy. That's a record high, and it's up from last year. And as abortion is still a major argument on both sides of the aisle, President Biden today signing an executive order to expand access to contraception.
Contraception is an essential part of reproductive health care, and more important than ever, as a woman's health is under attack across the country, it's needed.
Together, we will continue to fight to protect Americans' reproductive freedom.
And our congressional correspondent, chief congressional correspondent, Rachel Scott here. You know, you've been covering this for a while now. I mean, you've been on the road. You have been talking to both sides. You have been talking to women even that have crossed state lines to have to get an abortion. So how do you see this all playing out on the campaign trail?
And looking at those images, Kira, I was outside of the Supreme Court when the nation learned of the ruling that the Dobbs decision that Roe versus Wade would be overturned. And I remember seeing just the divide in our nation on full display. You had people cheering, and you had people in tears, coming to the reality with the fact that more and more women would have to travel out of state to get an abortion because now the decision is left up to the states. So yes, we've seen abortion on the ballot in states like Kansas. We know this was a major issue in the midterm election, but this will be the first presidential election after Roe versus Wade was overturned, and there is no doubt about it, this will be a major issue for voters. Just take a listen to some of the people that we've been able to talk to.
Okay.
Well, I am 100% pro-life, and I agree that we've got to stand for life at all costs and at all times. So I'm always standing for life, and I believe we all need to do that. That was on my bucket list, to be alive to see Roe versus Wade overturned. So it's amazing, and I think more and more, the more polls that we see, most Americans are pro-life, and so I think we're cultivating a culture of life. So I think it's a great thing.
So you have people like her who have been waiting years. She said she's been waiting her whole life, decades, for Roe versus Wade to be overturned. But of course, you have people on the other side of that who are definitely going to be voting to protect access to abortion.
And it's already impacting women across the country with regard to their health care.
Yeah, when you take a look at that map that you just showed just a little bit earlier, seeing 15 states where abortions have all but stopped across the country, especially in the South. You have abortion deserts now in the South where people are forced to travel hundreds of miles in order just to access something that they could have accessed a year and a half ago. The reality is that these abortion restrictions do nothing to completely ban abortion. What I have found on the road, traveling the country, talking to women, going inside of clinics, people will do what they have to do in order to get access to that type of care if they want it. So that means traveling hundreds of thousands of miles potentially. That means putting up the cost to stay in a hotel room, childcare for their children. And of course, there's the big question of the people that can't afford to travel. We know that some women have taken matters into their own hands.
See, that's where it gets dangerous.
Exactly, and that's exactly what a lot of these clinics are concerned about as we're seeing more and more states restrict access to abortion.
Yeah, it's like going back decades. So Mike Pence today, he called on the 2024 candidates to, quote, support a ban on abortion before 15 weeks as a minimum nationwide standard. How do you see this playing out in the Republican primary?
It's interesting to see how Republican candidates are responding to this. So you have Pence that's pushing Republicans to come out and say they'd support 15 weeks ban on abortion, right? You have some that have gone even further. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis supports a 6-week abortion ban. That is what he pushed and signed in the state of Florida. But you have others that are treading treading very lightly on this and that have really struggled to answer the question about what they would support. Would they support a 15-week nationwide ban? Do they believe it needs to be up to the states? Would they support that 6-week ban? And part of the reason is because they saw how this played in the midterm elections. They saw the way this fueled the Democratic Party, how it fueled their voters to get out, and even in conservative states like Kansas, where abortion was on the ballot just right before the midterm election, you had that conservative state overwhelmingly vote to protect access to abortion. And so behind closed doors, I can tell you on Capitol Hill, you got a lot of Republicans who are saying, look, we need to get our messaging together on this. There is definitely, something wrong here if we are seeing our voters are starting to shy away from us. And part of the reason for that is they're looking at those public polls that you just showed, where you have the majority of Americans that support some kind of access to abortion in the early part of pregnancy. And so this is definitely one that Republicans are struggling to sort of get together, get on a consensus with, on the same page when it comes to their messaging on this issue.
And you got Democrats saying, okay, we saw the momentum from the midterms. We're going to just keep working with that as we move forward.
Yeah, they're going to make this front and center, definitely. And you'll just see that from President Biden and probably from the Vice President later today.
Rachel Scott, great to have you on set before you get on the road again.
Good to be with you,
Thanks,
Karen.
Rachel.
Thanks.
All right.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.